The air thrummed with an almost imperceptible hum, a silent promise hovering just beyond reach. Sarah felt it, that familiar tremor of anticipation, a premonition of something truly good on the horizon. For months, she had poured her soul into an architectural competition, a grueling odyssey of late nights, countless revisions, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. Her design, a breathtaking fusion of sustainable living and urban integration, had captivated the judges. The phone call, when it finally came, was a blur of congratulatory remarks and hushed excitement. She was a finalist. The grand prize, a commission to revitalize an abandoned city block, was within her grasp. A lifelong dream, shimmering, tangible. Yet a strange, creeping unease began to settle in. It wasn't imposter syndrome, not precisely. Sarah had earned her place. It was something more insidious, a whisper in the quiet corners of her mind, suggesting that this burgeoning success was dangerous. She found herself procrastinating on the final presentation, her meticulous planning giving way to scattered thoughts and sudden, inexplicable urges to reorganize her entire apartment. She'd snap at her supportive partner Mark for the smallest perceived slight, then immediately regret it. Her sleep, usually an anchor, became fragmented, punctuated by vivid, unsettling dreams where her architectural models crumbled to dust. The closer she got to the precipice of victory, the more she felt an invisible hand pushing her away. Why did it feel like she was intentionally sabotaging the very thing she desired most? This is not Sarah's story alone. This intricate dance with self-sabotage, often playing out just as life seems to align perfectly, is a pattern many of us recognize, a silent mystery woven into the fabric of human experience. It's the promotion you almost get, the relationship that falters just as it deepens, the creative project abandoned on the cusp of completion. We stand at the threshold of something extraordinary, and then, inexplicably, we pull back. Why? What hidden forces compel us to erect barriers against our own flourishing? If you've ever found yourself asking these questions, if you've repeatedly watched success slip through your fingers, then perhaps it's time to delve into the invisible patterns that govern our most perplexing behaviors. Consider subscribing to Invisible Patterns, where we unravel the complex psychology behind human actions, exploring the unseen threads that shape our lives. Sarah's journey, though fictional, reflects a profound psychological phenomenon. To understand it, we must first trace the origins of self-sabotage, peeling back layers of conscious intent to reveal the deeper, often unconscious motivations. Our story begins not with a single dramatic event, but with the subtle, cumulative experiences of childhood. Imagine a young Sarah, bright and eager, bringing home a perfect report card. Her parents, perhaps overwhelmed by their own stresses, offer a lukewarm acknowledgement, or worse, a warning. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Or perhaps, in a moment of triumph, she shared her joy, only to be met with a sibling's jealousy or a friend's dismissal. These seemingly minor instances, repeated over time, begin to lay down neural pathways, associating success not with joy, but with potential pain, isolation, or even danger. This is the genesis of what psychologists call core beliefs. These are fundamental assumptions about oneself, others, and the world, formed in childhood and operating largely outside our conscious awareness. If a core belief forms that success leads to abandonment, or being too visible makes me a target, then the unconscious mind, in its protective wisdom, will seek to prevent situations that trigger these perceived threats. When Sarah, as an adult, approaches the pinnacle of her career, this deeply ingrained belief system activates. Her unconscious, operating on outdated data, interprets the impending triumph not as a reward, but as a potential precursor to an old, familiar wound. It whispers, "Pull back. It's safer here in the familiar discomfort than in the terrifying unknown of true success." The timeline of Sarah's self-sabotage, much like many real-life instances, follows a distinct trajectory. Initially, there's the intense drive, the focused effort, the undeniable competence. This phase is often driven by conscious ambition, by the desire to achieve, to prove oneself. Sarah meticulously crafted her designs, fueled by passion and skill. But as the external validation grew, the positive feedback, the selection as a finalist, the internal resistance began to mount. This isn't a sudden, dramatic collapse. It's a gradual erosion, a subtle shift in behavior. The once clear focus blurs. Small, seemingly innocuous actions accumulate. Missed deadlines, careless mistakes, unnecessary conflicts. These aren't intentional acts of destruction, but rather manifestations of an unconscious struggle. Consider the concept of comfort zones, but not merely as a state of ease. Our comfort zone is often a state of predictable suffering. It's the familiar pattern of struggle, the known limitations, the well-worn grooves of our emotional landscape. While uncomfortable, it is known. True success, however, often demands venturing beyond this familiar territory. It requires shedding old identities, embracing new responsibilities, and navigating uncharted waters. For someone whose unconscious mind associates success with danger, remaining within the comfort zone of struggle becomes a perverse form of self-preservation. It's a paradox. We yearn for growth, yet we cling to the very chains that bind us. The profiles of individuals prone to this particular brand of self-sabotage often share common threads. They are frequently intelligent, capable, and driven. They possess immense potential, often recognized by others, but struggle to fully actualize it. They might be perfectionists, setting impossibly high standards that become an excuse for inaction. Or they might possess a deep-seated fear of judgment, believing that any misstep in the spotlight will be catastrophic. Sarah, with her meticulous nature and her deep desire for her work to be meaningful, fit this profile. Her perfectionism, once an asset, could easily transmute into a paralyzing fear of not being perfect enough for the grand stage. The unconscious logic then becomes, if I don't try, I can't fail, and if I don't fail, I can't be judged. The social context also plays a crucial role. We live in a world that often celebrates individual achievement, yet simultaneously fosters a subtle undercurrent of envy and comparison. For individuals with a fragile sense of self-worth or a history of being ostracized for their successes, the prospect of standing out can be terrifying. The tall poppy syndrome, where those who rise above are metaphorically cut down, is a cultural phenomenon that can reinforce the unconscious belief that visibility is dangerous. Sarah, navigating the competitive world of architecture, may have subconsciously internalized this. The higher she climbed, the more exposed she felt, triggering an ancient protective mechanism to retreat. The elements of self-sabotage are multifaceted. It's not just procrastination, it's a constellation of behaviors. It's the sudden urge to pick a fight with a loved one just before a crucial meeting, creating emotional chaos that distracts from the task at hand. It's the inexplicable illness that strikes just as a major opportunity arises. It's the tendency to leave things unfinished, to always be on the verge, but never quite over the finish line. For Sarah, it manifested as the disorganized apartment, the frayed nerves, the inability to focus on her presentation. These weren't random occurrences. They were symptoms of a deeper internal conflict. Her conscious mind yearned for the commission, but her unconscious mind, driven by those old core beliefs, was actively working against her. Unpacking these mechanisms requires a careful, investigative approach, free from judgment or quick fixes. We are not dealing with a moral failing, but with deeply ingrained psychological patterns. The first step toward dismantling them is awareness. Sarah, sitting amidst her scattered notes, staring at the half-packed boxes that were supposed to be for her fresh start, began to feel a glimmer of this awareness. The pattern was undeniable. Every time she approached a significant breakthrough, This internal resistance would emerge. This recognition, this moment of aha, is the crucial turning point. It's when the invisible pattern begins to reveal itself. The key elements of this investigative approach are not about finding a single culprit, but about understanding the intricate interplay of past experiences, core beliefs, and present behaviors. We trace the timeline of these recurring patterns, identifying the triggers and the subsequent self-defeating actions. We profile the internal landscape, recognizing the fears and anxieties that fuel these behaviors. And we examine the social and environmental factors that might reinforce them. Sarah, in a moment of quiet introspection, decided to confront this pattern. She sought out a therapist, not for a quick solution, but for a deeper exploration of her internal world. Through guided introspection, she began to uncover the echoes of those childhood experiences, the subtle invalidations, the instances where her success felt like a burden rather than a blessing. She realized that her unconscious mind had developed a protective strategy, a way to keep her safe from the perceived dangers of being too successful, too visible. One particularly poignant memory surfaced: winning a school art contest at age 10. She remembered the thrill, the pride, but also the sudden icy silence from her best friend, who then avoided her for weeks. The unconscious conclusion formed: if I shine too brightly, I'll be left alone. This core belief, dormant for years, was now reactivated by the prospect of the architectural commission. The grand prize wasn't just a career milestone, it was a spotlight, a potential separator from her peers, a risk of isolation. Understanding this didn't magically erase the pattern, but it provided a roadmap. The self-sabotage wasn't random. It was a misguided attempt at self-preservation. With this newfound clarity, Sarah began to challenge those outdated beliefs. She learned to differentiate between past wounds and present reality. Her therapist helped her develop strategies to soothe her inner critic, to acknowledge her fears without letting them dictate her actions. She began practicing what could be called conscious success, celebrating small victories without fear, and intentionally surrounding herself with people who supported her growth rather than subtly reinforcing her fears. The final presentation day arrived, wrapped in a familiar layer of anxiety, but this time Sarah was prepared. She recognized the internal resistance, the urge to delay, to escape, to find an excuse. She acknowledged the fear of judgment, the lingering echo of that 10-year-old girl who just wanted to be accepted. But she also remembered the strength, the skill, and the passion that had brought her this far. She walked into the presentation room not as a victim of her past, but as an architect consciously building her future. The outcome of the competition, in a strange twist, became almost secondary. Sarah delivered a clear, confident presentation. Her design, her vision, her voice, fully present. She didn't win first place. Another firm secured the commission. But this time, something was different. She didn't collapse into regret. She didn't withdraw. She didn't sabotage what came next. Because the invisible pattern had loosened its grip. She had shown up, fully, authentically, and in doing so, she had achieved something far more important than the project itself. She had reclaimed her agency. Her journey didn't end there. The insights she gained didn't disappear with the competition. They became tools, guiding her through future opportunities, future fears, future moments where the old pattern tried to return. She took on a new project, smaller, meaningful, and this time she approached it with a quiet confidence. The anticipation was still there, but now it came without the familiar dread. The mystery of self-sabotage is not about weakness. It is about protection. The unconscious mind, in its effort to keep us safe from past pain, sometimes holds us back from present growth. But when these invisible patterns are brought into awareness, when their origins are understood, something shifts. We gain the ability to pause, to choose. to respond differently. We step out of automatic reaction and into conscious action, and that is where real change begins. Because the goal is not to eliminate fear, the goal is to stop letting fear write the script. Self-sabotage is rarely random, it is a pattern. And patterns can be seen, they can be understood, and once understood, they can be changed. If Sarah's story feels familiar, you may already be noticing your own patterns. The hesitation before opportunity. The sudden loss of motivation when things start going well. The quiet urge to retreat just before a breakthrough. These moments are not failures, they are signals. Signals pointing towards something deeper that wants to be understood. Awareness is the first step. Curiosity is the second. And change begins when you start observing your own life the way a detective observes a pattern, not with judgment, but with attention, with patience, with compassion. If this exploration of invisible patterns resonated with you, consider continuing the journey. Subscribe to Invisible Patterns for deeper insights into the hidden forces shaping behavior, decision-making, and personal growth. Because the most important mysteries are not outside of you, they are within you. And the more you understand them, the more freedom you have to rewrite your story.